everyone, and welcome to the very first The Best You, a coaching podcast. I am absolutely delighted to get this one off the ground and equally as delighted to have you join me for the very first one. My name is Gary Gillen, and I guess it's probably a good idea to start off with a bit of a bio here, and I do promise that I won't do this every week, but you likely want to know who you're listening to. I know I would. So here goes. I'm a life and leadership coach, and my absolute goal with my practice is to help all clients fulfill their underused or untapped potential. Most of us are truly not operating at our full potential or living our absolute best life, and I have a sneaking suspicion that by the same token, most of us anyway, already know this. So here's the kicker. Not living up to our potential is not a failing, nor is it for the want of desire or trying to fit caring for and growing ourselves into our already busy lives. There are just a multitude of very valid and rational reasons as to why we don't, won't, can't. You can basically insert any other negative contraction in here too, if you prefer. Invest in ourselves right at this moment, and it's my mission to help people find out why and to help them find out their why as well, and help them remove whatever obstacles are preventing them from living their best lives. And as the title of the pod suggests, helping you become the best you. And I have to say, I did actually struggle with the title of the pod, as I'm not a very creative guy, to be very honest, but I do like it. And I hope it resonates with the people and it sticks, as well as it is truly meaningful to the context of what we're trying to do as coaches, of course. Anyway, back to me. I work with individuals and groups and teams to help move them forward. Everybody already has the skills genuinely to live their best life. And my mission is to help people unleash these skills via specific tools and techniques that will help remove any real or perceived barriers that are getting in their way. And in terms of background about me, and I'm sure I'm going to sprinkle a bit of my varied experience throughout the pods and blogs that I'll be publishing going forward, but I have been in a variety of leadership roles in different industries since the mid-1990s, starting of course in Scotland. In case you were thinking that this accent was from any other country, you can get that out of your head right now. It's Scotland for sure, which is when I was introduced to and gained first-hand experience of how differently people behaved, functioned, reacted and performed under different circumstances, quite frankly. And I was immediately fascinated, and this fascination has not left me, and in fact it has turned into a bit of a lifelong obsession or passion for me to help people understand their behaviour, approach, influence, attitude and energy expenditure, and how all this converges into influencing their lives right now and in the future, of course, as well. I am a bit of a thinker, and I do like to think, and over the years I have developed a bit of a process of when I do most of my deeper thinking, and I can tell you that it's either when I'm driving, especially longer distances of driving, or while out running, whether that's on the track inside the gym or on the treadmill or outside around about the areas that I run. And then during the pandemic, I did decide that it was time to kind of figure myself out a wee bit more and become, truly intentional about what I wanted to do with the next phase of my career and my life. And that then formulated itself into enhancing my education experience and passion and applying this to formal coaching training to ensure that I could appropriately service the people that I work with. So I have been working as a professional coach since 2021, late 2021, and did receive my certified professional coach designation from the Institute of Professional Excellence in Coaching, that's IPEC, and my ACC Associate Certified Coach from the International Coaching Federation, and that was just last year in 2022. And recently I've also embarked on a journey with the Positive Intelligence community to further enhance my knowledge of the power of the Positive Intelligence operating system, and more to follow on that a wee bit later on in today's pod. So in truth, I honestly can't begin to express how incredible this journey has been for me, and I will be forever grateful to have found genuine meaning and calling in my life. Not that I had a bad life by any manner of means before that, not even close, but this is the place to be for me, and hopefully through the content that I put out, you'll be fortunate enough to be in the same position, and I would love absolutely to help get you there. So what can you expect on this particular episode? So now that we have the kind of introduction and the bio out of the way, we can get to the content for this episode. And what I think I'll be doing for the most part, certainly in the early days anyway, is covering the details of the blogs that I've published and adding a wee bit more commentary to what I've shared in writing. The inspiration behind this will be for any listeners. You'll get to know me a wee bit better than you would with just consuming my written words, and to provide another media vehicle for you to absorb the content that I put out, and for me to maybe add a wee bit more in that that I decided to leave out from the blog as well. I don't want to make the blogs too long where people just get put off by the length and the duration it would take to read. So that's where we're going to start anyway, and we can see how it goes from there, and hopefully we go to a special place. So one caveat that I did want to provide is that this is the first The Best You, a coaching pod, but it's not my first ever pod. I'm a Glasgow Rangers fan, and Glasgow Rangers, for folks that are not in Scotland, is a football team, or soccer as they call it here in North America. And I'm also the current serving president of the North American Ranger Supporters Association. And we have been producing and publishing what we call the NARSA Weekly Update podcast since December 2020. And right now, we are just in the process of dropping, to use some lingo used in Podland, episode 118. And that doesn't include a handful of interviews that I conducted with some Rangers legends as well. So if you have an interest in Rangers, then search NARSA Communication on your podcast platform of choice, and you'll hopefully get to enjoy the content that we put out there. There won't be a lot of mixing between both of these at all. However, there might be the odd reference, back and forward, I guess. But anyway, back to The Best You. I mentioned this to give you a bit of an idea that while this is pod number 1, the background and experience that I've personally gained over the past almost 2.5 years of writing, recording, and helping produce the NARSA content will serve you better here. And you'll hopefully not have to suffer the early podder stutters and general errors that that NARSA consumers had to, a couple of years back as well. And what I also think I'll do in each episode is provide a wee quick overview of what's going on in my coaching, in my life, and my leadership journey, and not so much in a kind of here's exactly what happened to me this past week or month or fortnight or whatever, you'll never believe this kind of way. I don't mean that. What I mean is more along the lines of the more poignant things that are ongoing in my studies and my professional and life experience as well. And I'll try not to bother you with any trivialities. The content will be more focused on supplementing the main content that I will be sharing for that particular blog as well. Just adding a little bit more life experience in there is really what I'm saying. And just on that topic then, the main thing for me this time is working, as I mentioned briefly earlier, on the positive intelligence operating system. And where this really came from was a couple of fellow coaches that I did my IPEC studying with, Alexis Stern and Leanne Christian, had approached us to form a pod to do a 7-week intensive discovery journey through the PQ, as they call it, positive intelligence or positive quotient. And it was a great journey. We got to have a pod together, as I mentioned, of 3, and that came with it the obligation to meet every week to go through the material that we'd been covering, what our experiences were, and what our intentions were to move forward. And then at the end of the 7-week journey, for regular participants, it's a 6-week journey. For certified coaches, it's a 7-week journey. And after that, there's an opportunity to join the community, and that was my final decision to commit to at least a further year of further development. And quite honestly, the reason I did that is because I genuinely believe in this stuff. I did see some value for myself personally, and I've been able to apply some of this with some of my existing coaching clients as well. It supplements and complements the work that I did with IPEC very well, and provides daily support and reminders of the work that needs to be done to continue on our path towards being the best us, quite honestly. And one of the key parts of what I just said there was the work, and we need to concentrate on and be diligent to and commit to the work that we are going to do, because if we don't, then we're not going to reap the rewards that we would be hoping to reap. So that will definitely be a theme as we go forward as well. So if you're not familiar with the PQ, a core part of the framework is educating participants of their psychological makeup, which is made up of both sage, things that will help you, and saboteurs, things that will detract you from your best self. And for now, I'm just going to list each of the sage and saboteurs, and then we'll cover them at some point in a future episode. I'll figure out how best to do that. But from a sage perspective, we have empathize, explore, innovate, navigate, and activate. And the saboteurs, the main one that everyone has, is the judge. And then the co-conspirators, as it were, are avoider, controller, hyper-rational, hyper-achiever, hyper-vigilant, pleaser, restless, stickler, and victim as well. I didn't mean to say wrestler and then restless. I think I just got my notes a wee bit wrong there. So there are 10 saboteurs and 5 sage as well. So as I say, I'll do a wee bit of research on that, or a wee bit more thought on how best to present that at some point in a future pod. And also what I think I'll do is in the kind of what have I been up to sort of segment, I'd like to talk to you about books that I'm looking at as well, especially professional, progressive books that we're doing. So alongside the Positive Intelligence book, which is written by Shirzad Chamine, I am also working through right now The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay Stanier. And once I get through that, I'll do a little bit of a book review. I will incorporate a book review. And just to be the caveat, absolute cards on the table right now, as I am not a literary critic by any means, not even close. But what I will do is provide a bit of an overview for the listeners of the book, and a summary of what it meant for me at the time of reading, because context is most likely everything in that regard. But just to give you a little bit of a taster, if you're interested in maybe going and getting a copy of the book afterwards, or if your learnings are similar to mine or different to mine, then it can generate a bit of a conversation as well. I do already have a couple of books in the archives, so to speak. So I'll roll these out going forward, starting with the next pod. In terms of frequency of the pod, not 100% sure yet. I'd like to maybe put a couple out a month. I might start monthly. I don't know. I just have to manage it with all the other things that I have going on right now. But I will get a level of regularity out there so you can know what to expect and when. So on the content for this episode, we do have a couple of blogs to catch up on. I'll start not with my first actual blog, which was essentially just explaining what I think my blogs will be about and the fact that it was my first blog. I'll be technically starting with my second blog today, which discussed career pivoting and my specific journey from project manager, which is my current day job, to my, I guess you could call it the hybrid mode of project manager and coach, to what will maybe eventually, hopefully at some point in the future, be full-time coaching. That's the plan and the goal anyway. So just to get, as I say, supplement what I'd said on the blog, I really started asking myself, a question that I could honestly answer, like a question that was meaningful to me, and by doing so, then I would have some data, some tangible information that would help me determine what my next steps are. And the question I started with, actually, this is not the question I started with. I started with other questions, like a wee bit more subjective, a little bit more difficult for me to answer. So the question I locked in on, and the question that really gave me the impetus to move forward, was, what do I actually enjoy about what I currently do for a living? As I mentioned, I'm a project manager. So once I locked in on the answer, that then helped me release the internal blockers that had kind of been deterring me from moving forward. And then I had data to build a wee bit more clarity and awareness of what was maybe avenues of opportunity that were open to me going forward, where I could help, I could hopefully excel and enjoy what I'm doing, and then get a bit of a visualization about what the journey would look like going forward. And I firmly believe if you ask and answer the right questions, everyone can do this. They can do this too. So yeah, I'm a project manager. As I said, I've been in project management now. It's actually coming up for almost, it's touching on 30 years now, believe it or not. And I have been in a series of leadership roles in and around that time as well. I am a project management professional through the Project Management Institute, and I've been a project management professional since 2007. Man, I'm feeling old as I say all this stuff. And I have taught and developed curriculum at Mount Royal University, and that's local here in Calgary. I'm in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And I've been doing that since 2008. And I've talked at various PMI conferences over the years as well, although I haven't done that for quite some time. But I was quite into it at one point. And I don't have a great memory at best, but as I mentioned on the blog, not once did I ever remember sitting down with anyone who would listen, like as a kid, that little Gary didn't sit down and say, when I grow up, I want to be a project manager. That's all I want to be. That's not the case. I wanted to be a stuntman. That's what I wanted to be when I was younger. But I like most people who become project managers, it's almost accidental project managers, or they kind of stumble into it by a series of events that have happened to them in their lives. So I kind of did stumble into the trade by a bit of a fluky accident. That's definitely a different story for a different day, and I do want to talk about how I actually got into that. But yeah, left school very young in the UK. You leave younger, and I just turned 16. I started a 4-year apprenticeship as a painter and decorator, and then the reason I picked painting, quite honestly, was because you didn't need any qualifications leaving school to become a painter. None whatsoever. And that was on my academic career trajectory at that point. I was lazy, just a bit indifferent to school, and didn't really attend much in the later years. Not badly behaved or insolent or obstructive or anything like that in class when I was there. School just wasn't my jam. At the time, it quite honestly wasn't, and I just did the bare minimum to be able to leave and walk out the door. It's very different to schooling in North America, where you know getting your grade 12 graduation is a big deal to catapult you to other things academically as you go forward. In Scotland at the time, you just leave. You just get a form signed that says you don't have any school equipment, and then you walk out the door, and that is that. So then, anyway, as I said, I went through this conversation which brought me to, I don't know if it's a bit too grandiose to say it, but I had this epiphany, where what I realised was what I really genuinely enjoy doing is helping people, and I, for a period of time in my career, I was working on what I would call rescue projects, where the project is in trouble, there has been some level of stress induced in the project, and there are things that are not going well, and or other stress related, project related things that have gone on. And I loved that. Some people would kind of run in the opposite direction, but it was a real opportunity. There are few opportunities, or there are less opportunities in peacetime than there are in conflict time. So the opportunity to work with people and help them navigate whatever challenge they're currently wrestling with was something that I've always thought is quite exciting. And then, so I had this thought, I'm going to be a coach. I think I've actually been coaching for most of these years without actually knowing it. So what I know now is that that's absolutely not the case. What I was doing before was essentially just telling people what to do with a smile on my face. And I've kind of coined that phrase for a wee while now because I kind of like it, and it's true. I was doing a level. I was liaising with people. I was communicating with people. I was listening to people. But the art and science of coaching, I was more mentoring. I was listening. I was ideating, supporting, maybe making some decisions and the like. And that's not what coaching is. So I did do some research and picked a brilliant training coach provider, IPEC, as I mentioned before. And then my journey kind of began. Quite honestly, human beings are kind of weird. We're kind of funky, we're complex, we're fascinating, and we're not the same every single day or under every single circumstance, and that's just absolutely fascinating to me. And it's a hook, it's a big hook. I'm kind of addicted to trying to figure out more of that, and caring enough to try and meet everyone where they are and doing everything I possibly can to help them move forward to where they want to be is the best parts of my coaching job and my project management job as well. We are stunningly, beautifully imperfect, and the more you embrace that, right, and I have to say there was periods of time in my life where I I would be in conflict with that, quite honestly. I would make judgments very, very quickly about people, and I would stick to those judgments because I was typically proven right most of the time. But there's no real solace in that. There's no real satisfaction in pegging someone as a particular type and style of human. It's naive and ignorant at best. But what makes it more fun and more interesting is to try and understand the complexities of the people that you're working with, and try and understand how fascinating that people truly are when you get beyond the initial superficial judgments. And I've managed to do a job of that to date, but that's an absolute lifetime work in progress for me, and will be to the day that I take my last breath, which is hopefully a long, long, long time away. So yeah, that was a wee bit of background as to where things had went. Starting from not a very good academic student to becoming a tradesperson, to then getting a lift up into the project management industry, and then kind of going through an academic journey in and of that with the various institutions that I was studying at as well. So that's those within themselves. Those were some career pivots. So obviously, career pivoting isn't new, and people have been doing it for longer than any of us would be able to realise, I'm sure. But it was important for me because I was in a fortunate position to be able to actually consider it and know it for what it was, and do a bit of analysis and build into it. And I have been fortunate in my career, as I mentioned, to do it. And at the time, I don't know that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to think of something that's better for me, better for my family, better for my career, if I could kind of coin it like that. And I have benefited from that, and each time I've done it, I have been an absolute enthusiastic sponge, soaking up as much as I possibly could at every single opportunity to make sure that I don't waste the opportunity. And as I kind of mentioned briefly before, everybody has all of this stuff at their fingertips. Everybody should understand that they are at choice, and I'll emphasize the at choice every single day, whether you believe it or you don't. If you don't like something, you can change it. Now, there's a whole bunch of things that can be put in the way. I need to pay the mortgage, I need to pay the bills, I have 3 kids, I have other responsibilities, and those are very, very valid reasons. 100% they are. But let me just re-emphasize again, if you don't like something, you can change it. It doesn't have to be a catastrophic change or a wild change or a wild pendulum swing, which is the next blog that we'll talk about on the next pod. But you can make incremental changes to make things a little bit better and more palatable and easier to manage for you. If you love something that you're doing, the change in and of that would be raising its prominence and getting absolutely everything you possibly can, every single bit of goodness from it. And if you have a feeling of feeling stuck or are in some way restricted, then you have the opportunity to look at it not as a blocker or as a real hassle, and look at the opportunity that is within that as well. You're only going to be restricted in your consideration of what your potential opportunities or your limitations are, and they are placed on you by you, and that's just a fact. So why I thought this was important to think about as my first kind of main content blog was essentially you need to understand where you're at, and you need to understand what's holding you back and what's holding you away from moving forwards to a path that's genuinely more along the lines of what is truly valuable and deeply meaningful for you. When I immigrated to Canada, that was back in 2004, October, actually Halloween, believe it or not, 2004, I lost count of the number of people that I would meet, whether it would be professionally, personally, it doesn't really matter, who said, oh yeah, I thought about doing that. We thought about doing that. We actually did some research. And then you can just insert a variety of very valid and very understandable restrictions that they placed on themselves as rationale for them not doing it. And at the time, I found myself actually realising or recognising how fortunate I was not to be burdened by the restrictions that others had described. I didn't have any children at the time or any massive weights that would anchor me to the west of Scotland. And it buoyed me to realise that I was part of a very select group of people who had somehow fashioned a journey for themselves to a position that when opportunity knocked, I might be able to take advantage of this once-in-a-lifetime choice that was afforded to this exclusive group. And then I started to sprinkle a dose of reality on it and actually genuinely pay attention. And I realised that Of course, I was no more fortunate or lucky than any of the people that I'd spoken to about this particular topic, the topic at the time being immigrating. And what I had done was I'd just basically taken an ambition, and it was an ambition of mine from a very young age. I had family here, so came to Canada in 1982 and 1986 as a very young kid to just experience it, so that my ambition was there from a young age to come here and live here. And I turned that into reality by just refusing, quite honestly, to allow any seemingly insurmountable challenges to deter me, from knowing what I needed to know, by research, and then, truly being at choice and making an informed decision that was best for me and my family. Everyone can do this. Limitations are placed on us by our own internal reality blockers. If you dare to dream, that's great. And then what we typically do is we dare to dream, and then we talk ourselves out of it just as quickly by sprinkling this dose of our reality on it, because quite simply good things like that are not for people like us. They happen to other people, don't they? That kind of thing. We made our beds, we're just going to have to lie in them and then just watch as the other more fortunate, exclusive group who are less constrained by the things that we fashioned into our own lives, they get to live their best lives and we don't. That's not true, folks. It's absolutely uninformed and unfortunately is very, very common, which is really too bad. I firmly, honestly, truly believe that every single person has way more opportunities open to them than they allow themselves to believe. And I'm still going on a continuous journey to try and find out why that is indeed the case. So by exposing the restrictions, really, truly, deeply thinking about what those are and doing some self-discovery work, and then exposing the restrictions that you operate under and the internal stories that you tell yourself, you're going to absolutely move closer to a position of genuine conscious awareness that's going to allow you to decide what you want to do next. And that's the point. You get to decide what you get to do next. And that's a key for me and in everyone's life. You are not your internal storyteller. And please know that. The stories that you are telling yourself right now are not true. They are just the ones that are restricting you to a point where you maybe are more deliberate about the actions that you're not taking to move yourself forward. So anyway, back to the career pivot. I know there's a lot of information that I'm kind of throwing at you there, but it was all around the restrictions that some had possibly placed on themselves in and of their circumstances that restricted them from even thinking that there might be a better life for them and their families somewhere that was beyond the west of Scotland. And by the way, I was not desperate to leave the west of Scotland. I originated from Paisley, just next to Glasgow in west central Scotland. I had a great life there. I had a great job there. I worked for Shettleston Housing Association. That was my last job. I had just completed a study as a research assistant with the Health and Safety Executive in Glasgow Caledonian University. I was well paid. I had a great social life, a very, very strong family unit there. I was not desperate to leave. The only place I would ever have left Paisley for was Canada and Calgary specifically, as I had family there, as I mentioned before. So this was not me running away from anything or thinking there was going to be some sort of promised land somewhere else. I just had an itch and I wanted to scratch it, and I did the work, as I mentioned previously, to understand what that looked like, and then built into that work, continued to do the work, and then made it happen. I am no more special than anyone else, folks, and I guarantee that to you. So back to the career pivot. I put together kind of 7 steps from a career pivot. They're on the blog, and I'll put a link to the blog on the show notes for this pod, and I'll just go through it quickly. The first one is you need to assess your current skills and your interests, and do some reflection on your skills. Are you actually genuinely skilled at those things, or is it something you've just been doing over repetition? Establish what you enjoy doing, and that's what I did on that run that day during the pandemic lockdown. Was I just started to think, what do I actually genuinely enjoy doing? I genuinely enjoy interacting with and helping people move forward. And once you find out what you start to enjoy, you're going to start to see so much more opportunity out there when you sit down and have that conversation and that realization with yourself. And then just identify areas where you have expertise and passion. I did read something at some point many years ago, is pick something you're good at and then learn to enjoy it. And while I see absolute benefit in that and merit to that. It's probably a wee bit different in everyone's thought process to get to the spot where they truly understand what it is they're genuinely skilled at, genuinely interested in, and then start to go on the journey to try and marry both of those together. I don't know if it's as simplistic of finding something you're good at and then learning to enjoy it. There's probably just a wee bit more to it. The second thing after assessing your skills and interests would be then researching potential new fields. If it is indeed a new field that you're looking to try and do, you could be pivoting within the same industry, within the same discipline, but you may be just doing something, for example, maybe taking a leadership role on, or moving from a leadership role to an individual contributor role, or something like that. You get to figure out what that looks like. It doesn't need to be some sort of cataclysmic shift from what you're doing right now if you are genuinely in an industry or a field that aligns with your skills and interests already, but you're maybe unfulfilled in your existing role. And then just doing a little bit of research on the job market, on your growth prospects, either within your organisation or elsewhere. And of course, salary ranges for those as well, because the financial part will be a key contributor to any decisions that you're planning to make as you go forward. After researching, then you build a plan. You develop the plan, and includes the steps by step to get you the necessary experience, qualifications, exposure, whatever it is you need for your new version of your career. It might include education, obtaining any certifications or relevant experience through internships, any volunteer work, maybe some freelance work, something like that. Don't put any restrictions on yourself right now. You're just building a plan. Networking will be a key part of your plan, and that's the next area as well. To reach out to people in your desired field, or people that are within your existing field that you maybe haven't tapped into just yet. Ask for guidance, advice, mentorship, any information that they can actually provide to you. You'll be surprised when you go to people and give them the respect that their experience deserves by saying, I've noticed you, I appreciate what you do, I respect, admire what you do. You can use whatever descriptors you need to. People will get flattered by that, and people are very, very willing to share their experience and their information as well. And it's going to help you gain a better understanding of what it is you're trying to do, where and how achievable that will be based on where you're at right now. And then you're going to develop your personal brand. You're going to create your personal brand. You're going to buy, the assessment work that you did on your skills and interest, and the research that you've done, and the planning and network that you've done. You're going to create or curate that personal brand that's going to showcase and highlight your skills and experience, and why those should be desirable for potential future employers, if it's an employer that you're trying to target at that particular time. And you're going to use that to market yourself to potential employers via whatever media is the most appropriate for you. And one of the things I would recommend, which is the second last part of the 7 steps, is to be open to new opportunities. Be willing to start at the bottom if you have to start at the bottom, and if your current circumstance allows it. But you might be in a situation where something hasn't presented itself to you for whatever reason to date, and through your stakeholder mentoring sessions, the research that you're doing, that something just comes up. So be open to any opportunities that come up that might not have been in keeping with what originally you thought. Don't restrict yourself to any singular defined path too early. Be open-minded as much as you possibly can to get yourself to a position of understanding all the options that are open to you at a given point in time. And the final one, this does not end or go away once you have hit that target and got to where you need to be. You need to be invested in continuously learning and growing as well. And in that field that you're in, of course, to stay competitive and to build your expertise and get what you need or want from it, but also to kind of continue to look for other opportunities for learning and growth as you move forward as well. So assess your skills and interest, research potential new fields, build a plan, network, develop your personal brand, be open to new opportunities, and continuously learn and grow. That's my 7 steps to building into a career pivot, and I hope that those have been valuable for you. All right, so there you go, my first The Best You, a Coaching podcast. I truly hope that you enjoyed it, and that you will consider joining me for more episodes as we move forward together. If you found it valuable, please do share it with others, as one of the main passions I have is around this journey that I'm embarking upon is to build a community of like-minded folks like you and I from around the globe to help each other continue to work towards being the absolute best that we can be. And you can find more details on this on garygillen.com. That's my name, garygillen.com. GaryGillen.com is not my name. Gary Gillen is my name, and my name is the website. And you can search for the Best You coaching podcast wherever you get your podcasts from as well. So until next time, folks, please do take care of yourself, and all the very best to you in your journey.